So, everybody, welcome to the Asian Baseball Committee's first Zoom event. It's the first of, I hope, many events. We're going to try to do one about every month, although we may take August off just because it's hard to get people to tune in and hard to get speakers for August. Um, we are very excited with what's happening with the Asian Baseball Committee. I'm in the midst of setting up a blog just for the committee that will be a center of articles published by SABR members about Asian baseball history and culture. That should be up in about 2 weeks, and I'll send everybody out an invitation to please visit. If you wish to write for it, please send me an email. Many of you have my personal email, and go ahead and write me anytime, but that will also be on the blog, how to do this. Um, so yeah, that's very exciting. We're also going to look for somebody who's a little bit more social media savvy than I am to maybe start posting on Instagram and anything else that they think is would draw people to the blog and to the Asian Baseball Committee. So we're going to start, as you may know, during our meeting in Dallas. We were lucky enough to have Aaron Fischman and Tony Barnette as our live guests at the committee meeting, talking about Tony's experience in Japan. And then we opened it up for questions. And we stayed over an hour. It was fascinating. And we are so happy to have him back here for all the people that couldn't make it out to Dallas. So, what's going to happen is I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, who's going to run the show, starting with some interview questions with Tony, and then we're going to throw it open for question and answers when they're through with their presentation. So, Aaron, I'm going to mute everybody who is not a speaker at this point. I see you're all muted. That's wonderful. Go ahead, Aaron.
Great. Thanks so much, Rob. And just to say a little bit more about what he said, I was really excited to be invited to speak at SABR 53 at the Asian Baseball Committee, and we were curious to see what the overlap would be with the guests. It looks like there are a lot of people here today that weren't there in person, so this will be great. We'll be doing some of the same stuff, but we have so many different things that we could talk about, and I just wanted to thank Rob again. I had such a tremendous time. Tony can speak for himself, but for me, it was just so rewarding to be able to meet with people who had read the book and enjoyed it, or people who are discovering it for the first time, or discovering an interest in Japanese baseball. And it's really good, really nice to just build those connections and foster them and grow them over time. But I had a lot of fun. We got to a Rangers game, even though they lost in extra innings. Tony got to see a couple of his former teammates pitch. One, I think, might have pitched after he left. He has young kids, so but
No,
yeah,
Luke,
great,
yeah,
great
Luke
time.
was coming in as we were leaving.
Yeah. And just starting off, Tony, do you want to reflect a little bit on your time in Dallas a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, no, again, thanks, Rob. Good to see you again. We had a great weekend in Arlington. It was fun for me to be back. And we got a lot of great feedback from the book, and that's a credit to you guys who have read the book, and to those who are simply talking to others who haven't and helping us kind of spread the word and just share our side of the story. Um, I'm happy to be here, happy to do this. I really appreciate Rob putting together and putting the effort back into the Asian Baseball Committee. I'll be seeing you guys a lot more as the future goes, as the future um, continues on with this committee. So I'm intrigued. I'm excited to share. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's do what we
Great.
came here to do, which Rob has handed us free access, and I don't understand why he would do such a thing. But here we go.
Questionable.
Yeah, questionable
Yeah.
at best.
So I'm pretty sure most of the people in attendance know already, but just starting with the term gaijin, it's in the title, basically like outsider or outside helper. What does the term mean to you, Tony? And talk a little bit about the positive and negative connotations? I know it's long been a little bit of a negative thing, but it's been embraced by foreigners at times as well.
It is a funny word because I think there are I'm unsure on this, but I'm pretty sure there is a derogatory history to it. But us guys who go over there and play and we are gaijin, like none of us care. Um, we almost kind of wear it like a badge of honor. Like I'm one of the few that have come to Japan, played and survived. Um, and it's kind of like one of those terms that kind of sticks with guys who did go over there and have kind of um, a little bit more longer than not like a one and done, but kind of had some tenured success. Gaijin kind of like gets kind of stuck on those guys a little bit more simply because it's just like this one of us kind of one a moment, and so it really doesn't. It's just kind of I think it's a fun word when you say it in the right circles with guys who have been. It resonates with them and it brings back a lot of stories and memories of just being a ball player in Japan, and I think that's how we all look at it as that's who we are. We're ball players, and if they want to have a term for us in Gaijin, then so be it. We're gonna do our best with it and just wear it like a badge of honor. To be honest with you, so it really doesn't like the word doesn't really play a whole lot outside of you hear it and you know it and you know what they're talking about. So makes it easy. Stories of when the subject's you and you know all the words that go with that when they're talking about you, it makes it easy to say, okay, I'm in one of two buckets right now. I either messed up or they're talking good things. So now I got to decipher which one it is.
Stepping back, the first contact by Don Nomura kind of took you by surprise a little bit. Well, you were asked by your teammate in AAA, but to that point, you had very little international travel experience. You really had only played in Canada and Mexico, I believe, in travel tournaments as a kid growing up. But um, tell us a little bit about what happened with how it got started, what your thought process was then, and where it went from there.
I mean, it was a whirlwind of a couple months. So in reality, it happened over a short period, and it was a major life decision. So like you give a 26-year-old chance to make a life decision, and really at the point without knowing what me being in a situation where I don't know what I don't know, it just turned into a flip of the coin of of weighing pros and cons against going to Japan or versus staying and legging it out and trying to get to the big leagues. Um, it was a big decision for a 26-year-old, and obviously sitting here today, I'm very grateful I made the decision I did. But nothing could have told, and like it really was a moment of surprise for me because I wasn't aware of how close I was to going to Japan. Obviously, I had no idea that was in my sights because I grew up knowing what I did know, which was Mr. Baseball, and you go to Japan towards the end of your career, not when you're 26 and just trying to make it. So it was all new to me. Looking back, I don't think I would have done anything differently.
I don't want to overly romanticize it. It was the money at first, right? Even though
Oh, I mean, it's
the
a huge
experience
factor.
would change your life
It's a
ultimately
huge
and
factor,
career.
of course. In any aspect. I mean, they're from a little to a lot in a 26-year-old mind. Like money is a huge factor, so I don't ever want to discount that. That's one of the main reasons most guys do go over.
They were offering you $500,000 at that point, and you were making like 20,000 or something,
Something
right? At
about
that
like
point
I
in
think I
AAA.
told the story recently. I just put $16,000 on my taxes the year before on my tax return, so 500,000 was sounding pretty decent to a 26-year-old kid who was trying to save up money to buy an iPhone.
Five, yeah, that still sounds really good to me.
Yeah.
But so you had a pretty difficult first season. You were demoted multiple times that first year as a starter. What was the biggest area of adjustment that you had to make as a pitcher on the field?
I think it's just the growing pains of the league, learning you before you learn the league. And that's a testament to the way that they scout and the way that they prepare. And I had some early success, and then I started to hit a wall a little bit as the league made a very quick adjustment to me. And I was making adjustments elsewhere, but some of the same things continued to haunt me. Like we talk about the games against Shannon and Murray. Although that first year I got absolutely hammered, but I was able to make the adjustment I had when I faced teams that I wasn't facing as as often. I had the I guess luck be on my side that my stuff and what I was doing was good enough to get by him that night. But when I have to face him a couple times back to back, the adjustment had been made. So I think it was just being young and overcoming those obstacles of a league learning you and having to make an adjustment on the fly. And when you didn't do it, off to the minor leagues, kind of, getting demoted and things like that. And so I think that really was, and trying my best to keep a good attitude through it, even though I was, pretty pissed off at myself and the situation I'd landed myself in as far as being, on the field performance. So, but just keeping a good attitude through that and just continuing to compete was the best thing for me, obviously. Like, I had nowhere else to go, back against the wall. So just keep trying, keep going at it. And it turned into a repeat, it turned into me getting re-signed at the end of that year, even after they released me. So, I like, just to touch on it, I guess the biggest thing for me was just being, early in my career, just understanding adaptability, even though it almost was too little too late.
Yeah, we talked about it in Dallas. There were those two teams you just mentioned, Hanshin and Yomiuri, who you started 6 times against them. And when that makes up 40% of your starts and you struggle so badly against those two teams, that will really skew the numbers and really hurt your ERA. There are only 6 teams in each league, in the Central League and the Pacific League. So you're going to be seeing the same opponents over and over again. And if they have your number, or if you're not fully prepared to attack them, then it's going to show. And as Tony alluded to, his story has a happy ending, and he was improbably re-signed for half the amount at the end of that season, then converted to the bullpen. But before we move on from that first season, tell us a little bit more about what it was like going to Toda, the farm club at the Nigun level for the Swallows, how that changed your routine, how that changed your attitude, how that changed really everything at that time, and how you were able to emerge from it and remain resilient through it
Well,
all.
at the time in the minor leagues, a lot of everything is a morning and afternoon activity, whereas in the top level, the big league level, everything is an afternoon to late evening activity. So one of the main things you got to do is learn to start getting up early. Like you go from getting the field till 12, 1 o'clock, and now you got to be at the field at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's an hour plus commute. So it really is, again, it's just adjusting and not giving in and actually just making the best of the situation you're in. So I would head out to the minor leagues, wake up, do my trek, subway to subway, station or line to line, walk and take a bus or taxi once you do get out to Toda, only to have it be excruciatingly hot during those Japanese summers. You just kind of feel like you're closer to the sun than most places, but it just it shapes you for sure as a ball player. It's one of those make you or break you kind of scenarios. A lot of guys get tired. It's not an easy commute. I think the commute now is a lot easier with with car services and stuff like that. But at the time, it's just one of those things that you just saw the minor leagues of Japan just bury guys. They didn't want to do it. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to go to these rural places and practice all day and sweltering heat and then just go home just to repeat it. We came to Japan to perform, to be successful, and to help our team win. And when you're not allowed to do it, it sucks. And then on the other end of that, you've got to go to a place that's not very fun to be at. So, but the cool thing about the minor leagues is like you're not the only one. The Japanese guys are there, and the teammates that I had were so great that you see them making the best of bad situation too. And that's one of those assimilation moments where you just got to get in there and realize that you're not the only one having a miserable day and at a tough place. So make the best of it with the boys, get out there, do your work, and then get home and rinse and repeat. It's the life of ball
Yeah,
player.
you said it well. It seems like it could be a really lonely, solitary experience, but you did have those great teammates around it. And also there were a couple foreigners. I believe it was Josh Whitesell and Aaron Guile at varying times when they were rehabbing injuries or for whatever reason.
Yeah, same with Jamie
They were
D'Antoni.
also in tow.
Those guys, all four of those guys, or three of those guys, were fun to be around. So made it
Yeah.
easy when you got some good teammates that you can actually converse and travel with.
Yeah, exactly. And then you were pitching, or sorry, the Swallows were playing an exhibition game in Yokohama on March 11th, 2011, that next season, preseason, um, when the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami hit. We're not going to be able to do it justice, of course, in just a little bit of time here, but it's a big part of the book. There are a couple of chapters on it. It was a unforgettable experience for everyone in Japan, the country as a whole. You, as someone who hadn't been there that long as well, just walk us through a little bit what you remember experiencing at that time, and also with 15 years or so of perspective, almost, I guess, 14 and a half years, how you think about that now.
Growing up in Washington, we'd felt the earth shake before. We'd had earthquakes even in my youth at like 7 plus, 7.1, 7.2. So like I've felt the earth shake before, and any Japanese citizen has also. They've been dealing with earthquakes as long as time is, simply positioning being on the ring of fire. But I mean, that day, that the way that the earth hit, that you could just feel the difference in it, and the enormity of the earthquake and how hard it shook, and just the way that the buildings were moving when you did get outside to see that. I mean, it was catastrophic. And like Aaron said, we're not going to be able to do it justice, but there was so much good that came with that bad that was absolutely heartwarming to see along the way. The way that them as a community rose up and took care of each other, and even today continue to deal with the aftermath of it, is absolutely beautiful to see, and it's beautiful to be a part of. But that day there was a lot of scared people, and it was a very unfortunate disaster that took the lives of 15 plus thousand people, and so many people are still unaccounted for, which is so devastating just to not even know. um, Something that we hope to never see again, and hopefully learn our lessons on placement of certain um, sites and things like that. But during that year, it was obviously a crazy year. The earth was always moving, a lot of earthquakes, a lot of aftershocks. um, we could just go into individual stories, but it was terrifying to see the look on your teammates' faces when you see it in the city of somewhere that they are invested in, somebody that they're from, their families there, their parents live there, their friends live there, and then they're just kind of watching the city get consumed by water. And it's a helpless feeling, and just
Yeah.
don't wish it for anybody, but it was an absolutely devastating thing to be a part of.
And since we were talking about the earthquake and tsunami, that reminds me of Marty Keenert. I just wanted to reference him really quick. He sadly passed away late last year. He was helpful with the book and really generous with his time. He um, was the first foreign-born GM in NPB history. He also uh, was the first ever, not just Gaijin, but just any person to serve as a general manager for two top level Japanese sports leagues. He was also the GM of the Sendai 89ers. But he spoke to me about recovery from that devastating disaster, and their stadium there for the Golden Eagles was not ready in time because it had been severely damaged by the earthquake. And just the way he was describing that electric atmosphere in the stadium when they finally came back, I believe it was during Golden Week in Japan. It's just something that I won't ever forget. And um, he's thoroughly missed, but I want to thank him again just for what he did to provide more insight on that period. Um, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but Tony Blanco is another person who passed away tragically in the nightclub incident where the roof collapsed in the earthquake, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later, but I just wanted to note those two before moving on. So 2011, you were converted to a relief pitcher. The team kind of threw you a little bit of a curveball. I mean, I don't know if you were surprised at that time. You'd been a starter pretty much exclusively your entire career in the minors and that first year in Japan, but you were willing to humble yourself, even if you didn't like the idea at the time. What was your thought process? Did you feel like you didn't really have many options at that point when they approached you with the idea of going to the bullpen?
It wasn't a very difficult decision. I mean, I had been seeing the success in some of the pitches I've been making, and obviously the year before that wasn't that great. So I guess it wasn't a total surprise as much as it was just okay. Let's give it a shot. And like I've done it before. I pitched in the bullpen before in college and previously, and kind of all over the place. I've never really been. I did like starting. I did want to start. Probably still do. But the fact of the matter was, the team needed help in the bullpen, and I think that was also a good place for me to, I don't know, try to throw harder, try to mix it in a little bit more. And obviously, they saw something that I didn't, and that's why I was back. That's why I came back. They had there was some Tomohito Ito, my boss now, Michael Okamura, Junji Ugawa. These guys saw something that could still be helpful. So they didn't get any pushback from me. I just went in and just kind of dove in with both feet and started trying to throw the ball as hard as I possibly could, getting into that bullpen role. So, yeah, not a lot of pushback from me. It was just a change of scenery, so to speak, and it was just something that came along with not being a good start of the year before, and them having an idea and me being at the mercy of it, saying, "Yeah, I guess." I mean, I don't know what would have happened if I would have said, "No, I don't want to do that."
Maybe
Like, well,
Toda? You might have been sent to Toda,
probably,
or
probably just would have been like, all right, well, enjoy the minor leagues all year, good luck. So, adapt or die. And I guess I was just willing to, listen to somebody besides my own ego and try something out that in the long run worked out really well. And it was a good career choice.
yeah, I want to correct one thing I said earlier that the tragic Jet Set nightclub incident was not caused by an earthquake. But just terrible. Octavio Dotel was one of the more notable players who passed away in that horrible accident in the Dominican Republic. And just talking more about Tony Blanco, he was such a good NPB player. He was one of those guys that spent a little bit of time in the major leagues, I believe, with the Washington Nationals. Didn't really catch on, then went to Japan, and his career really took off. He became a really good home run hitter. He had that really memorable 2013 season where he was going head to head, not technically not head to head. As a pitcher, you probably hate that when people say that, Tony, because
Hmm.
Tony Blanco is not pitching against Vladimir Valentin. They're both hitting against pitchers like you, but there were games where they would play the Swallows and they would just match each other home run for home run. 2013, that crazy season, Valentin ended up breaking Sadaharu O's single season mark. I guess first, just reflect on that memorable season. It wasn't a memorable season for you from a personal perspective, given all the injuries, or a team-wide perspective because the Swallows were pretty terrible. But um, Vladimir Valentin etched in history for what he did that year.
Well, like you said, Tony Blanco was a great dude. He was a good competitor, good teammate. Everybody liked him. Everybody that ever was his teammate liked him. I liked competing against him. And like you said, in 2013, that year, he was trading. It was blow for blow from Valentin and Blanco. They were just hitting the cover off the baseballs. Um, it was cool to watch. Personally, obviously, I was going through some issues with the injuries and just um, not pitching great. But like balancing that year hit everything. It's one of those rare occurrences where, from start to finish, almost he barreled everything he swung at. It really was cool to see. Even even in like a down year for the team, he was absolutely matching baseballs. And it when you see the guys who are naturally good hitters like Tony Blanco, Vladimir Valentin, when you see them put together, it's fun to watch and it's fun to be on the field for that because the ball just jumps off their bat. I saw Valentin hit a ball that was over his eyeballs from Kenta Maeda at the time. And Maeda was at the top of his game in Japan. He was getting ready to come to the States. He was one of the best pitchers out there, and he had no answer for Valentin. And usually he would have an answer for him at least one at bat, but it was just either you're walking him or you're giving up a home run. There's really no in between. So it was fun as a player to witness history. It's fun as a player to be on the field for things like that and to be happy for your teammate and just to be a part of it because it's always a big party. You know, whenever any ball players do something good, it usually means a big party for the rest of us, and we're never, I'm never going to say no to a good time.
Yeah, it gave you as teammates reason to celebrate in an otherwise dismal season. And from a fan's perspective, David Watkins, who wrote for TokyoSwallows.com, he told me that it basically just it not only gave Swallows fans a reason to go to Jingu that season and do so enthusiastically, but everyone just stopped in their tracks if they were at the stadium, whatever they were doing, just fully captivated and mesmerized by his at bat. And then he would single, hit a home run, strike out, whatever he would do, then they'd go back to whatever they're doing and not necessarily be paying that close attention to the game. But it was just a memorable time. And Vladimir Valentin was going for the Triple Crown that season. He didn't end up getting it because of Tony Blanco. So Tony Blanco ended up edging him in batting average 333 to 330 and had five more RBIs, 136 to 131. And this is in a 140, is it, I think 143 game or 144, one of those game season. Um, but getting back to Blanco before we move on, you had an encounter with him in the 2012 Climax Series. What happened?
Well, he hit an absolute screaming grand slam that has not come back.
Oh, is that it?
It was I don't know. I pitched 2 days not previously, but I'd pitched a couple days and I'd been pitching a lot lately in the playoff series. And I get in there and I'm facing Wada. There's a base open and I end up walking him. I just wasn't feeling it that night. I remember I was off. My command was not on, and I was trying not to give up the big one. And I get to Blanco, and now I've actually fallen behind 3-0, and I throw a fastball through the zone, and he comes unglued 3-0, swings right through it. Luckily, he misses it, but then I'm like, oh hell, I gotta go do this again. And so I do it again, and he doesn't miss. He hits a grand slam, and it ends up being a game-winning home run for Chunichi that night. And I remember standing on the mound, looking to the dugout, waiting for someone to come get me, and nobody was moving. It was just like the game was over. We weren't coming back from this. We're now down three or four, whatever it was. And I'm like, okay, my arm's dead. Like somebody bring in another reliever. I look in the dugout and everyone's just kind of looking at their shoelaces, looking at the ceiling, looking anywhere but where I'm at. So he hit an absolute tank off me. He got it. They ended up going on to the Japan series. That hurt. That still stings to this day. So thanks for bringing it up. And it's one of those moments where you kind of got to put your best at the moment against their best. And I lost on a pretty grand scale.
Well, just as a palate cleanser, after the next two playoff-less seasons, 2015 was such a great year for the Swallows. You helped lead the team to its first pennant in 14 years, and it just seemed like a lot of fun. I'm assuming even to this day, you remember the fans chanting your name as you're coming into the game near the end. Let's talk about that. Happier memories.
I mean, that year was fun year. I do remember a lot about that year. Winning teams have a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun on the road. We had a lot of fun in the clubhouse. We had a lot of fun hotels, restaurants, and team parties that year. Jingu was rocking that year. That place was, we were winning games by the smallest of margins right out the gate. I think 13 of our first wins were by 1 run or less. We, as a bullpen, didn't allow, I think we didn't allow a run in a game that was of like 2 runs or less in like the first like 20 games that we worked in. So like our bullpen was just locked down, and it started that way and it finished that way. You know, a couple injuries and, you know, things along the way which happened, but everybody that stepped in and played a major role. You know, we had cool stories like that year, like even like cool story like Mitch Denning. He was an Australian kid that was playing in the minor leagues, or in the independent ball in Japan. Australian kid, had a little bit of minor league time, and we ended up signing him, and he ends up getting like huge hits and like along the way, and like he ended up being on the roster for enough time to make like league minimum. I know that's a little off topic right there, but for a guy
No,
who
it's
just
interesting.
wasn't, for a guy who wasn't supposed to be there, we picked up
Yeah.
an Australian kid out of Japanese independent ball, and he ended up being an integral part of our outfield that year, with Valentine spending time hurt. And it was such a cool season that it was almost like whoever touches the uniform this year is going to get a big hit, is going to pitch a big inning, and is going to be the hero that night. And that's just kind of was the story of our year. That year was a different hero every night, and the main
Yeah.
guys showing up consistently, doing their job, being the main guy from starters to bullpen to hitters. So it really was a cool season that all went together. We ended up getting stopped by SoftBank. They were a juggernaut that year. And when you go into a championship series, it's who's going to make the least amount of mistakes. And they made none, and we made a few early on that we just couldn't rebound from. And so, I mean, but it really was a fun year. 2015 is really cool. Jingu still is, when you sell that place out, it's one of the coolest places on earth to watch a baseball game, in my opinion.
I'm glad you mentioned Mitch Denning because that just highlights just the aura around the team, how everything was clicking and how everyone was playing for one another. And it reminds me of what you talked about with me at one point, where you were achieving individual accomplishments, and it was impressive. You set the single season franchise record for saves. You were flat out dominating in the closer role that year, but it, when you're really rolling as a team, you weren't really getting caught up in any of those individual accomplishments, right?
No, it was all fun for everybody. You know, it's almost like, oh, like there's a new award in the clubhouse. Everybody, let's have another party. You know, like it just kind of like with Yamada and certain guys continuously getting like pitcher and player of the month awards and stuff like that. All star this, so and so this, and so this, and like it just kind of turned into this huge joke. And we're like, oh, we got another award. Like, all right, another team dinner. You know, and it's just a fun time. Like you don't ever hear losing teams being a close knit group. It's always the winning teams that somehow end up being the closest knit group. And sure as hell, like when you're on a winning team, it's so much fun. There's a lot of fun. Guys are sleeping good. Guys are eating good. Um, the nights don't seem so short, and the days don't seem so long.
So I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here, but
Mm-hmm.
speaking of eating well, what were some of your favorite foods in Japan, that you do like to enjoy while you were there?
Okonomiyaki for sure. I like Hiroshima style over Osaka style. Um, any bowl of spicy ramen at any time of day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night, walk home because the subways have shut down. If you can find one open, get in there. I've had yakiniku for breakfast at like 6:30 in the morning. I'm not afraid. If it's open, it's fair game. You know, I do like okonomiyaki, and like, you know, I do like my a bowl of spicy ramen after a night out with the boys. Um, but no, I mean, I do love a lot of the food that I did have there. There's some things that were no-goes, you know,
Well,
but
what what's that?
only through trying did I figure it out.
Do you want to cite any of the no-goes, or
Now we'll leave it
should we
for
move on?
we'll leave it if you're in a restaurant with me.
Diplomatic answer. I like that. Is there
Yep.
any place in the States where you've gotten okonomiyaki that you've really liked, or do you just keep it for Japan?
There's a place over by me here in Chandler, actually. It's an Osaka style shop, and they they do a really good job, and they do have the Okasaka, the Osaka style okonomiyaki, and they do they do it right over the place where that I live, and I'm a big fan of that. I've taken some people there, and they like it. So yeah, there's a couple of places here in Arizona. Arizona's good for being a foodie if you can stand the heat sometimes. So yeah, man.
There is one other thing I wanted to ask you about off the field stuff. Which place, it could be a park or just somewhere you like to frequent a lot, it was near where you lived in Japan, that stands out to you, that you would like to go, when you weren't required to be at the field or on the road.
I don't know, trying different places, walking around different avenues, just getting our bearing. And then when you have small kids, you're kind of hamstrung when it comes to that. So more parks and play areas and things that you can do between nap times or whatever it is. But when it was by myself, like just riding my bike through Japan, big fan of
Was
doing that.
Yogi Park, right? It was one of the
Yogi
places
Park
you
was one of
liked.
the big ones. Absolutely, that one was near us, and it's a cool
That
park,
park is
great
huge,
atmosphere,
very
and it's
beautiful.
really big. It's beautiful. I mean, if you haven't been to Japan, we could sit here and talk all night long about how great the parks are, how pretty the trees are, and how amazing it is just being out and seeing their infrastructure, their architecture, and how they build upon their everyday life. It's we could opine on it all night long, but Japan's
Yeah,
great. If you haven't been, get a plane ticket, go see it. If you have, get another plane ticket, head on your way back. I don't,
I need to
I
go
don't think
back.
anyone's going to regret it.
I think during the meeting in Dallas, we didn't really get to talk about Go Fujisawa that much. He
Mm.
was your interpreter for 5 of your 6 seasons there, and it became basically like family to you. What did that bond do for your comfort level in Japan? And I just want to spend time on it because interpreters, they have to be available 24/7 to the foreigners, and I think they're the unsung heroes in a lot of this.
Interpreters are unsung heroes on our front. They help us tremendously from everyday life to on the field stuff. And you have to build a relationship with these guys because you're trusting that they are translating a message from your superiors that's supposed to help you be successful. And if you get it wrong, everyone kind of looks like an idiot. So it's tough, at first, but Go was great. Go was my age. It was his first year translating, and we kind of went through it together and things to translate, things not to translate. That hey, Go, I'm just kind of complaining about this right now, and we he helped me out in a lot of situations when I was away from the field. So being a ball player has its perks, and the translators are for the most part one of those perks. I was there long enough, and I had some really good ones to help out. But Go was such a hard worker, and he cared. And it's cool to have somebody there that's. I mean, it's kind of like having an assistant at times, makes you kind of feel important. But at the end of the day, they're really there. They're another teammate trying to help the team kind of make sure that the foreigners are comfortable and taken care of to make sure that they keep their focus on the field because just like going anywhere, it can be daunting for anybody in a new place in a new scenario. So the translators Go Fujisawa, he's a good buddy, and luckily I still get to work with him. He's in the analytic department now, but smart guy, always did his best. He would feel really bad if he was ever like a minute late. Um, but Go's great. The interpreters really are the lifeblood of our success over there. They can make or break us as players due to their translation skills. And um, nowadays, with my job, I help some of the translators now understand baseball lingo because it's international. But if you haven't played baseball and you are trying to translate stuff that we're trying to talk to, there's just kind of a different language. But baseball is an international language, and if you don't know the lingo, it can be tough. But um, and translators are so helpful, and I just got a lot of respect for those guys. They put in a lot of hours for us.
I think that's one really special part of your story, that it's kind of come full circle in a way, that you are now are working for the same organization that helped you resurrect your career, and you're able to give back and pay it forward in that way, and try to find the next Tony Barnett or the next whoever, um, and help them potentially lengthen their career by going to Japan, possibly um, following a similar trajectory to what you did, which has become more common, even though it's still pretty rare, or just forge their own path. What has that meant to you to be able to do that?
Um, I don't know. Like it's this whole journey, this whole experience has been extremely, rewarding. And I don't know how I can pinpoint one moment for all of this. I don't know how I can really touch on this except for just saying that being here right now, being here talking to this group, being in at SABR event, being invited back to Arlington and having Aaron write this book and do these things, the whole experience that you and I have been talking about is absolutely it's been an honor. And I do want to like open it up here a little bit. I don't want to get too long-winded and focus on, too much of like what the what things that these
Yeah.
guys are going to read about in the book. But
Yeah.
I do want to hear from them. I do want to hear from what they've gotten so that we can talk a little bit more about any questions or concerns that they have with Asian baseball. Because I do want to talk about Asian baseball and how the book ties into that as well. And
Yeah. Yeah.
how the book ties into the current state of Japanese baseball and where we're heading in Japanese baseball. Because I think that, Aaron, I think your book is one of the beginning things that we're going to see on the international scale. I think there's a lot more interest on the international scale from Japan to Korea. And I think in time, this is going to be used as a reference point for other authors who are getting ready to explore Japanese baseball and all of its glory and
Yeah.
hilarity.
That's a really good way to wind it down. And Rob, I'd love to bring you in here if you're ready. We were thinking now might be a good time to open it up to questions if you think that's a good idea.
That sounds like a great idea. I'm going to start with what Tony just said and say, Tony, with the Dodgers entering the Asian market so aggressively, what do you think the future of Japanese baseball will be?
Well, it's going to be more prevalent. You're going to understand a lot more names when the WBC team rolls out. I think there's going to be a lot more attention on national um, tournaments. I think there's going to be a lot more scouting in Asia, in Korea. I think the teams already have put people in place. When I was early on in my career, there was maybe a handful of guys in country. And now Japan, and this is, I think that, let's see here, my first few years. So yeah, that was 2010, 2011. And now fast forward just 15 years. And I think every single organization has people on the ground in Japan at all times almost. And people that I run into on the international stage, they're making flights to and from constantly. And so obviously the talent pool is going to have to be there, but I don't see a shortage in it in the time being. I see Korea, Taiwan, and Japan playing a larger role on the international stage in the MLB side and for the next 5, 10 years in the future. Even Taiwanese pitchers, there's a lot of younger kids that are throwing a lot of velocity coming out of Taiwan right now. And there's a lot of young arms in Taiwan that are throwing that are getting our attention. That scouts are starting from Japan, going to Taiwan and going to Korea to see these youth. And we'll just have to see where the leagues progress on the youth level moving forward as well. So, Rob, to answer your question, teams like the Dodgers and those teams that have had success with the Asian market, they're going to continue to try to pluck everybody they possibly can. And obviously, the Dodgers with their monetary um, uh, with their money,
Right.
you're not going to see them
Yes.
shy away from spending big dollar to get the top talent every single year. So look more for the next batch. I think we've got a guy on our team, Murakami right now.
Murakami.
Murakami, he'll be stateside soon. He's a killer. He's gonna hit absolute tanks. I can't wait to see it.
People might know him from the WBC.
Yep. Jeff Cohen, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Tony again.
Hey Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for coming.
I have a couple of questions for you, Tony, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I know Bobby Valentine, who used to manage in Japan, he said that the Japanese players today, most of them could start on the major league level here in the States. Could you give us kind of a scouting report? Is that accurate?
I think a lot of guys could. I would say there's probably 3 or 4 guys on every Japanese roster right now that could make a case for being a starter on big league teams. And the talent drop off is pretty drastic considering the pool of talent that we're pulling from. When you only have 4 or 5 foreigners, obviously the skill level from player number 1 to player number 30 is going to be a little bit more dramatic than what it is here in the States. So I don't know I wouldn't say every single player can start for a major league team, but there's definitely on most teams less than just barely about a handful of guys that could make a case for a starting spot. There's just obviously different things that teams are looking for, but the skill sets there, it's just physicality and power. Does it come with it? Does it translate? And a lot of times when it comes to players who are shortstop, second baseman, kind of center of the field type players, it's hard for major league teams to kind of buy on them. Most Japanese guys that you do see come over are going to be corner outfield spots, possibly first baseman, and mostly pitchers. And that just is just a physicality kind of thing at this moment right now. But we'll see how it progresses. But I can't wait for the next WBC, and I think a lot of fans are ready to see Japan and Korea bring it back out because I think there's a lot more excitement around international baseball game due to the WBC, and with Japan putting on blast, putting out there every single year they play pretty much their A game. It's fun to watch. So continue to look for it.
I will. We heard a lot of things about the different type of baseball used for the pitchers, like between the States and Japan. It's a little tacky in Japan, and I guess the laces are raised just a little bit more. Could you tell us? Well, you pitch in both the major leagues and Japan. Is there how big of a difference is it?
Well, there's definitely a difference. Mizuno makes the baseball in Japan, and Rawlings makes the ball in the States. And Mizuno, like the ball, I want to say it feels, I don't know how much, but it does feel a hair smaller than the MLB ball. But I also don't know if that's it playing with you with the tackiness and the way the seams are presented. Because on Major League Baseball, and I haven't grabbed one of the newer ones yet, but a lot of the times they can feel like cue balls in their hand. The laces are super low. There's like a chalky substance over it, and no reason guys were using sticky stuff to control it because sometimes these balls are just super slick. Whereas in Japan you don't need it. You use some rosin to kind of take the sweat off your hand. But the tool that we're using as pitchers is pretty uniform, and I don't want to say it's easy to throw, but it's definitely easier to control, to command in your hand. But also on that note, I'm not going to sit here and knock the Major League Baseball. Certain things are certain equalizers and separators. And if you can't throw the tool that we're handing you better than the next guy, then that's just going to separate you into column A and him into column B, whereas you're the player, he's not. And that's just one of those things like the pitch clock. It's a separator. Right. Who can do it the best now? Like this is part of the rule. This is the tool that you're given. You got to be able to use it. So on a physicality side, on the physical side of the ball, yeah, the ball's different. I prefer the Japanese baseball. I know MLB's been working to do different things, and they've had prototypes of things that are kind of like the Japanese baseball, but maybe one day they'll just sell out and have Mizuno make it. But I don't see Rawlings taking that
no, I don't think so.
Contract away lightly anytime soon.
Right. And my last question, in 2015, you had a wonderful year. You were third place in the Central League's MVP voting. Did that take you by surprise, or how'd that make you feel?
I mean, that was probably one of the coolest things I didn't get a trophy for. Like because you'd never sit there and as a starting pitcher, it might come into view. But usually I was also playing with, Yamada, who ended up winning it, and he had over 330 with 30 plus home runs, 30 plus stolen bases. So like, you're not getting it. You're just like, okay, well, there's one MVP, and I never even thought about it as a bullpen guy. But then when the results came out and I got third, it really was kind of cool. I was like, holy hell, like, okay, so I did enough to where the rest of the league kind of took notice, saying if it wasn't for him, like, we're probably not being in the spot. That team's not being in the spot that they were in. So to even be mentioned in an MVP vote as a bullpen guy, you did something right. And I mean, it is a special thing to know. Like, I remember, I think I was on your podcast and we were talking about it, and I completely had forgotten that was a thing.
Yeah.
Like, even to this day, like, it surprised me when you reminded me. I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's right, that's cool. That's pretty neat. It's something special. And obviously, like I said, it's something, probably one of the cooler things I don't get a trophy for. But in the back of my mind, it's I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one.
Go, everybody, go get this book. It's fantastic. Thank you, Aaron, for writing this too.
Thanks, Jeff.
Tony, you mentioned about the chemistry that your team had in the 2015 season, and you said winning teams have good chemistry and culture. And so, does the culture come first, or does the winning come first? How does that happen, right?
Yeah, chicken and egg, huh? Like, I guess that's one of the things where I think the culture comes first, because the culture of our team hadn't really changed over the time that I was there. Obviously you mix and match with different personnel and different players, but with Japan and the NPB, you're on a team that's for the most part been together for a long time, and there's not a lot of overhead. There's not a lot of change when it comes to players leaving teams, or free agency is not as big. So I think the culture was always there. This is who we are. This is how we show up to work every single day. When we do have a team party, this is where we do it. This is how we do it, and we did carry that. And that was one of the things that was like neat. We carried that even through our losing seasons. We're still going to go to dinner together. We're still going to party together. We're going to celebrate our small wins together, quietly, away from the public, as we're in last place and nobody cares. Or we're still going to continue to celebrate ourselves as individuals, as a team, when we're not playing well. So the culture comes first, I believe, because when we start winning, when we started having those night after night after night after good time, and all of a sudden dinners are more fun, more guys are coming out to dinner, breakfast tastes better in the next morning. The coffee's primo. It just, when you're winning, it's contagious. Hitting is contagious. Good play is contagious. And so the culture helped us freely move through those victories on how do we perform. Okay, well, we're winning. Hey, we won tonight and we're going to our team party. Same thing that we had last year when we were losing, but now we're winning, and now we're doing a little bit more, and there's going to be a bigger group. There's going to be more guys in it. So it's a really good question. I do like that one, because it can happen on the reverse. You can have a miserable bunch of guys, and all of a sudden they start winning, and all of a sudden you see the culture change. You start seeing guys show up with certain things for everybody who a couple months previously wasn't talking to anybody. So sometimes I think you're right. I think it is that, which came first, the chicken or the egg, and I think it can happen in both settings, to be honest with you. But in 15, I think the culture was set in stone first, and then the winning came, and it just made the culture so much more fun.
Nice, thank you. One other question: with how big Little League baseball is, in particular in Japan and in Asia, what how come none of those kids are end up going to college? Do you think the NIL will hit any of those kids? Like in the Dominican, they find them at 13 and 12 years old.
Well, Japan has its systems, and like with the Dominican, there's different systems, there's different schooling, there's different camps, there's different organizations involved. With Japan, Little League, it's the same as it is here in the States, except for like, they love baseball. The Japanese love baseball from the youth level all the way up. And you're actually, right now, there's a hitter for Stanford who went from high school in Japan and signed with with Stanford. So NIL, I don't know how that played into it, but it is one of those moments where you're starting to, you will, on the youth level, there will be slow change, depending on who wants it, depending on how this kind of thing works for this. I can't, his name is escaping me. I can't think of the top of my head. But they have their own draft, and the NPB is no league to spit at. It's an absolute money making, fan loving organization. Or the NPB is, it's a great. It puts butts in seats. It's providing a lot of talent. There you're seeing a lot of talent on the world stage. So a lot of these kids, there's really not a big reason to rush out of Japan when, if you play your cards right and are good at baseball, there's a spot for you on a professional team. And if you are true good enough, Otani good enough, everyone's going to always be calling, no matter, doesn't matter. You're always going to be you're always going to be the pretty one getting the phone calls if you're that good, but
Really amazing how fundamentally sound those kids are. It's a pleasure to watch that.
it is a different type of baseball, a different style of baseball, a different ideology behind how they run their practices and what they produce at a young level versus how their high schools are ran and how many kids are on the team and just done. And they are, I don't want to say I don't want to generalize, but the Japanese traditionally have a more tighter ran ship when it comes to practices on the youth level. We've talked about it a lot. There's physical differences between cultural bodies. And one thing the Japanese have gotten extremely good at is their adaptability and their flexibility and their ability to keep the bat in the path longer than typical power hitters, how to repeat their mechanics, how to gain power through their mechanics and through their own ways. So without getting too deep into the whole ideology of their practices and how they go about their business, the NPB does offer a different style of baseball that, if you have been to Japan and you have witnessed it firsthand, it's enjoyable to watch. And it can be frustrating, just like watching your favorite team here in the States. And it can be maddening, but you learn to love it and you learn the way the game, the intricacies of that game versus the power game here.
Okay,
Can we go to Mike now? Oh,
no, first we got Scott and then followed by Mike.
sorry, Mike.
I'll handle it, Aaron.
Oh, hey guys. Oh, hey Tony. Just have one question. Can you just talk about the environment pitching in Meiji Jingu, how to compare to the stadiums you played in the States? I know it's one of the older stadiums in Japan.
Jingo's neat. It's just a fun night experience being outside. We battled with it the whole time because we would get out there that night and the mound would just be beat up because the high school and colleges would use the game before us during that day. So you'd have a good 18, 27 innings of baseball under its belt before it got to me in the 8th, 9th inning. So it was always a little, disastrous once I got there. But I did love pitching in Jingo. I like pitching in the open air places like Koshin and Mazda. Not so much Chibolote. I don't know why. I didn't really. I hear they're going to get a new stadium too, but I didn't care for that stadium very much. Cebu, I have about an 8 billion ERA there. That place, I don't think I could ever get anybody out on my own. But I did. And I think it runs into that question with being one of the older stadiums. I did like pitching in Wrigley. I liked pitching in Fenway. I liked pitching in, like St. Louis. I know it's not the original old stadium, like even Camden Yards, like standing on those mounds is pretty cool because those, and I had the pleasure of pitching in Arlington at the old ballpark at Arlington. And it was one of baseball's in the States is one of baseball's final, one of their last, what do you call it? Cathedrals. Everything's getting modernized, and the new stadium is unbelievable feat of architecture, but there's just something so special about some of these older parks, the red brick of Arlington and Fenway and some of the older stadiums. They just have that character, and they've got that, you can see the ghosts of baseball's past sitting in the seats. They're cool places to play, even like Chavez Ravine, standing on that mound, it just seems very Hollywood. Bright lights, golden seats, everything's shiny, no one's paying attention to the game. Texas is in town. They didn't care, so places like that, I can't pinpoint which one would be my favorite, but I do love pitching at Jingu at night during the summer. It's such a cool atmosphere when we're winning.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tony.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Scott.
Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. We just got back from a year in Japan, and when you watch the news, the sports talk is all about the Dodgers, once in a while about the Cubs, nothing about NPB. And what I'm wondering is, with all, many of the best players going to the US, with all this attention on MLB, is there a danger of killing the goose that laid the golden egg?
That's a good question. I don't think there is, because the Japan, like, they're still covering the NPB in certain circles. Like the NPB circle is like, you go out and you still see the newspapers printed all over the sports sections in the newspapers, but I don't think it's going to, because I think that the talent is going to continue rising through. Now, depending upon how progressive the union and the league get, we might see some changes, but I don't think the players, even the Ohtanis, I don't think they want to do anything that's going to harm the league, the NPB, because in country, Japan they're still selling out seats. They're still marketing. There's still a big market for Japan, and they don't need the MLB to subsidize it. Now, when a guy like Ohtani goes to the States, it only benefits the NPB, because now there's TV rights that come along with Ohtani playing in LA, and different teams are going to be buying the right to showing that broadcast, and some teams have to more or less like just kind of go with it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that the popularity, it's by coming to the United States, these guys are only making more money for Japan. More TVs are being turned on for baseball, and Ohtani is just such a great ambassador that any kid that gets the name Ohtani in his mind of how great he is and how amazing he is, it's a good thing. And that's going to resonate in Japan, because now the Japanese little boys want to be the next Ohtani. They want to hit and they want to pitch and they want to do these great things. So there's a possibility of that always, but the way that the contractually players are set up, like Japan is going to continue to get their best players. They're going to continue to see these players play for 5 or 6 years until a team posts them. Some will be quicker than others, but we're still going to see that unless contractually, like I said, the union and the league change the way they do their youth availability to the world. But I don't see that. I just don't see that happening. I would hope it wouldn't. That would be devastating, because Japanese baseball is fantastic.
Rob, I have a quick question, if you don't mind.
And my telephone's ringing. So
You're muted. Oh. Should I go? Okay. I just wanted to ask, it just opened this week, so the chances are slim, but has anyone here today seen the Yakult exhibit at the National Baseball Hall of Fame, or has any plans to see it over the next year? I'll be able to be there. It's going to be such a privilege in 3 weeks from now, as part of their author series. So they'll be officially launching that exhibit Hall of Fame weekend, but it's technically already open, apparently.
It is already open. We soft opened it today. I don't get to see it until 2 weeks. I go up the 24th, and I'll be there for a week to help show people around and for induction. And yeah, I hope people go up to see it. It looks awesome from what I've seen. So yeah.
And Ichiro's getting inducted that weekend.
We will
too.
have a future Zoom talk about that. We hope to get some of the other curators there and some pictures, and we'll walk through it on a Zoom meeting. So maybe in a month or two we'll do that. So Nelson's had his hand raised here for a while, so let's go to Nelson.
Hi, Tony. You mentioned that you faced a dilemma of whether to chase the 500,000 or keep your major league dreams alive. Today, do you think that going to Asia and playing for more money is still viable for people with dreams of major leagues, to, possibly up and coming prospects?
I think more so. I think more so today, the opportunity to go and develop and make some money and while still keeping your major league prospects alive. I think it's more so prevalent today than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Teams no longer are looking for, I guess teams are just looking for analytics now. They're looking for metrics that match up, and they don't care where they find it at, and they don't care how you find it. But if you're going to go to Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and you're going to end up finding something and you're going to showcase it, the MLB is going to look over the fence and say, what is that? And how much time do you have left on your contract? Like that's where we're at in the game is, and you see it with pitchers, is the velocities are higher than they ever have been. And guys are just throwing harder all the time. I think recently we had one start where the average fastball was 99 miles an hour throughout the entire game through 3 different pitchers. It's insanity. Like that is a lot of velo in one game from 3 guys to average that the entire. So you're seeing this uptick in talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so guys nowadays, they don't really care. They just they want some stability. And MLB has done a better job of offering minor league minimums, higher major league minimum, more access to resources, better nutrition, paying for living, like places to live. Those are all things that I didn't have when I was a kid. So that 500 grand was a lot more reach out and gimme. Whereas now that 500 is a little bit less, because the leagues are taking better care of guys. But it's definitely still there. And I think the fact that guys like myself, guys like Suarez and Michaelis, Matt Moore and Nick Martinez have gone over there in the last 5-10 years and had success and come back and been integral parts of bullpens and pitching staffs and everyday players, you're only going to see it more. And so I think Japan and Korea have actually opened themselves up as a developmental tool to use if you're actually good enough to use that tool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. Just a follow-up question. You mentioned that they have the analytics to determine how well you're doing over there. My impression is that like in Asia, the analytical tools are not as developed as they are here in the United States. So just anyway, that's my last thing, and I'll mute myself.
Yeah, I mean they are. That's just it. It's just who's telling everybody what we're doing behind the scenes. And Japanese companies and organizations are usually pretty tight-lipped with how they, with how they find their success. They're not just going to be like, hey, everybody, look, this is what we're doing over here. This is how we're winning. Go ahead and, just to let you know. So they say pretty tight-lipped, but I can tell you right now that the analytics that we are using here on the stateside is being used in Japan. It's just how teams are implementing it in their minor leagues at their big league level is dependent upon each organization. So I'm definitely, and that's one of the things in my profession now as an advisor and scout, I do talk to the analytic department, and there's a usual constant back and forth between what the analytics are saying and what we're seeing in person. And that's kind of like that dilemma in baseball we see in every single aspect is at what point is too much analytics a bad thing? And where do we meet in the middle between what a player, on a personal physical level versus stat sheet? How do we live that gray area of finding the right player? So yeah, I think the analytics that they are being used is just who's using what and how they're applying it within their own organization.
Thank you.
No raised. Does anybody else have any questions?
If I have an opportunity, I just want to say something in closing, Rob. Should I do that now?
Let's give anybody else a chance for a quick question before Aaron finishes off. All right, Aaron, go for it.
Thank you again, Rob. Tony, also always a pleasure hearing from you. But I said this earlier, I want to say this again because some people joined later in the call. I've seen a lot of familiar faces or names if you're off camera, and I appreciate the interest and support. Some of you have been gracious enough to have Tony or me or both of us on your shows, or you've interviewed us and written about us or the book, or you've been a supporter and read the book, or whatever your affiliation to me, Tony, Rob, Asian baseball. We feel the love. I do, certainly. And I want to thank you for that. And I I'm excited what Rob is doing. It seems like there's some good momentum to keep having these meetings and building the interest and the turnout. And then the last thing I want to say, just a small request. If you have the book and have enjoyed it, it would really help a great deal for you to leave a review on Goodreads or Amazon just to help us spread the word. Because sometimes it is a little bit of an uphill climb getting the word out about this story, but everything around it has just been so rewarding and fulfilling. And a lot of you here today have helped make that happen. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Tony, for joining us tonight. Really enjoyed it. I'll just say, if you are not a member of SABR, please join us. If you are a member of SABR and not a member of the Asian Baseball Committee, please sign up. This is just the start of what I hope will be a very exciting year, and hopefully we'll go well beyond this year, growing the committee and making it a real center for studying Asian baseball history and Asian baseball culture. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. I asked for a round of applause, but you guys are all muted. So I'll just say good night and be on the lookout for our next announcements for our next Zoom talk about a month from now or maybe 6 weeks from now. Thanks so
All right,
much.
thanks, Rob. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Look forward to doing this again. Take care of yourselves.
All right. Good night, everybody.